whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today. But if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace.
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat, because on the dance floor is where we'll meet. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop or do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really grooving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Now 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you breathe then you achieve. And so if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll be.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up
and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Baby, yeah, gotta get on up. gotta get on up, baby.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up.
Feel the groove, get on the floor, get on up. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a wonderful Thursday night broadcast of Random Topic Thursdays, the hottest live stream in the cosmos of social media, whether you're watching via Facebook, Twitter, or on our two YouTube channels. Thank you all for tuning in. Of course, we want to bring in our brother Shawn James in a second, but first, try it on chicken, meat, or fish. Nonny's goes great with every dish. Go to nonnyscreoleblends.com right now and order you some Creole seasoning right here from the Big Easy to your greasy. Subscribe to our Facebook page at Commonwealth Cosby, where you can purchase the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby on Kindle. It's available right now. And of course, since you know the channel is not monetized, if you all would like to support and contribute to our program, you can donate at the links at the bottom. Of course, he is the author, not the woman of the author, but really the man is the author of The Woman Crisis that's available on Amazon and other outlets now. I want y'all to please give it up for Shawn James. Shawn also is the author of the John Haynes series. He's always here every Thursday. So good evening, Shawn.
Good evening, Gavin. How are you?
I'm doing good, my brother. Doing good. It's good to see you today.
It's good to see you.
We're going to go ahead, brother, and get started. There was some breaking news today. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's been everywhere. Alec Baldwin, who is a famous actor, if I don't say that much, has been charged with involuntary manslaughter for essentially a cinematographer, Aliana Hutchins, back in 2021. Baldwin was working on a film called Rust when he fired supposedly a pistol that struck not only Hutchins, but also the director of the film Rust. I believe the director's name we have here, his name is, why do they have it here? Director of the film, Joe Souza. And Hutchins was a cinematographer who was a rising star, described as a rising star in the film industry. This incident happened, I believe, back in October of 2021 when Hutchins was shot in the chest as she rehearsed a scene with Baldwin and the film's director, who was wounded. I believe he had a gunshot wound in the leg. New Mexico's first judicial district attorney, Mary Carmack Altuiz, announced the charges Thursday, nearly 15 months after Baldwin was alleged to have fired the live round from his prop gun, unaware that the Colt 45 revolver contained live ammunition. Actual bullets are forbidden from film sets. However, investigators later found several other lead bullets mingled with insert dummy rounds. Now, Baldwin was not the only person charged. Ana Gutierrez Reed, who was the prop master on the set, and weapons handler, I should say, was also charged, who loaded the weapon. District Attorney said she planned to give the juries two options for the charge. If convicted under a lesser charge, Baldwin or Gutierrez would face up to 18 months in prison and a $5,000 fine. The DA will also ask the jurors to consider a harsher penalty, which carries a mandatory 5 years in prison, because the alleged crime involved the use of a firearm. Now, Baldwin's attorneys, as well as the attorneys for Ms. Gutierrez, I believe, have responded. Gutierrez, Reed's attorneys, I'll have this right here for you all to look at. Sorry, this is from the Los Angeles Times. It's called "The Investigation Flawed," and said they intend to bring the full truth to light and believe Hannah will be exonerated of wrongdoing by a jury. Her attorneys Jason Biles and Todd Bullion stated. Now, I think the reason Baldwin was charged, Shawn, is that in part Baldwin was the producer on this film. So he could face a criminal trial or accept a plea deal. Now, his attorneys stated that this decision distorts Elena Hutchinson's tragic death and represents a terrible miscarriage of justice. Uh, Baldwin's attorney, Ruth Nikas of Quinn Emanuel, added that his client relied on the professionals with whom he worked, who assured him that the gun did not have live rounds. We will fight these charges and we will win. Now, it should be noted that there was a plea deal also in this case. One individual had reached a plea deal regarding this matter, and that person, Shawn, I'm sure you've heard of this. The film's assistant director, David Halls, who investigators said gave the loaded revolver to Baldwin just before reversing an old wooden church at Bonanza Creek Ranch near Santa Fe, reached a plea deal to accept a misdemeanor charge of negligent use of a deadly weapon. Now, I'm going to go over with everybody what the charges are, he's like what he's facing and so forth, and the difference between each state's laws. It's very important to know that each state has laws that are written in particular to a certain charge, like manslaughter, and it's not created equal. So manslaughter might be, although there are similarities, the wording of it is quite different, and that's the key. What is the actual definition of the charge?
How's it going, sir? My understanding, you were in the room when the lady when someone was shot?
Holding the gun, yeah.
Okay, alrighty.
What do you need?
Well, I know your name, so
Okay.
it's
Let me call you back, okay?
Let me get with my lieutenant and see where we want you to hang out. Okay?
Whatever you want to do. Whatever.
Yes, sir. All right, give me just a second.
I better mute it because with the music, they'll come up with something. But just know this is fair use. I wanted to see if they were actually going to play a clip of his interview with the authorities. But I guess we can talk. Shawn, you had followed this. I don't know if you had followed this case, but I'm sure you've heard of it. Looks like Baldwin certainly can face, as well as the armorer on set. Looks like they're facing some serious charges. Obviously, it's a felony, and it's 5 years. With the maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Now, this sounds eerily familiar to something that happened exactly 30 years ago. If you remember the situation with Brandon Lee, the son of Bruce Lee, who was on set of the film The Crow and was shot and killed when another actor fired a firearm for a scene that actually had a projectile in it that struck Brandon right in his chest, severing a major blood artery and killing him. What is, you would think now that we're in 2023, and this was in 2021, that these types of things would be avoided. But
1 second. Just have to close the window because I have a thunderstorm going on in New York.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to know, what do you think, your thoughts on this shooting, especially nowadays? You would think that there would be updates to prevent stuff like this, especially tragedies like what happened with Brandon Lee, and you have this situation here.
You would think that there would be things to stop things like this from happening on set. Unfortunately, what happens on set is due to human behavior. Now, according to one report I had heard, that your Alec Baldwin and several of people were playing with these firearms on set. which is a major violation of the codes as related to productions. You're not legally supposed to have any live ammunition on a set when you're on a production, but somehow people were playing with these firearms, which is something that would put the entire production crew in jeopardy. Because when you're mixing live and blank ammunition together, you really can't tell the difference. And because you can't tell the difference, what happens is that if somebody's playing with these guns on set, it can basically make it where the entire crew is put in jeopardy. And Alec Baldwin, being in the position of an executive producer of this whole project, he was supposed to make sure that his staff was following union rules, because there's WGA, SAG, and there's DGA. So there's 3 different unions. And he's supposed, even on a low budget production, you're supposed to be following the union rules as related to productions. And again, loaded ammunition, live ammunition, is not allowed on a production set. And that in and of itself is basically why Alec Baldwin is currently being charged with involuntary manslaughter, because as the executive producer, he is the ultimate one in charge of that production, because he's the one who is accountable for everything. And he's supposed to make sure that the weapons on set are meeting the union standard. Now, the person who was handling the weapons, they are also accountable in this case, because they were the ones who were supposed to make sure all of those weapons were checked before any of these weapons were even put on production, because the property manager, they're supposed to make sure that all of the props are in place. They're supposed to make sure that the props are working the way they're supposed to work. And they're supposed to be looking at these props and make sure nobody is playing with these props. And this is possibly why the individual went out and took this plea deal, because they knew that they wouldn't win in court, because you were the one who handed him this firearm and didn't even check to see if this weapon was filled with either live or blank ammunition. And again, that's the property master's job. That's the other person's job. Their job is to make sure that all of the prop weapons are firing blanks, and you're supposed to even have extras on hand, or you're supposed to take all the ammunition out and check it before it even goes on set. I mean, there's a lot that needed to be done here, but Alec Baldwin clearly did not take care of things, because again, executive producer and director are the 2 people who control what goes on set. And this case sadly shows us that nothing really has changed as in the aftermath of Brandon Lee's tragic death. That the big problem on these sets is that people don't take a set seriously. And when they go playing around on set, it can lead to somebody winding up losing their life.
Eric Brown, I don't know what we're not talking about that with Shawn. And Shawn is a guest here. So I don't know where you're bringing this up out of the blue. If you don't have nothing to comment about the topic.
He's a stalker, so you have to block him, because he's a guy who likes to stalk me. Ever since I did passports in 2019, he's been stalking me and my channel, and I have blocked him, and I'm urging you to block him, because he's just a stalker.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. I'm gonna get back on topic. Let me just speak from a legal standpoint. You talked about him being the producer of the series. It's not even just about that. What the law states is when you're dealing with a firearm, the law looks at the person that was holding the gun. You have a duty to still make sure that the gun is being handled properly and that it's safe. And if someone is killed as a result of your actions or as a result of you holding a gun, they looked at you being held responsible. Now, I don't believe Alec Baldwin intentionally tried to murder this woman. Of course not. That's why he's not charged with murder. He's charged with manslaughter. Now, I still think there's a possibility, of course, with the help of his attorneys, he might be able to get off on it, because when you read now, I'm not a New Mexico lawyer, but when reading the law here, Involuntary manslaughter consists of manslaughter committed in the commission of an unlawful act not amounting to a felony, or in the commission of a lawful act that might produce death in an unlawful manner or without due caution and circumspection. Of course, caution means to be careful uh, is a state of being careful, and circumspection, just when you say inspect, circumspection would mean wary and unwilling to take risks. So that's a question that's going to be put for a jury. Basically, did you use prudence in handling this? And if you look at, of course, the case with happened with Brandon Lee, that was a similar situation. Another case that anybody may want to look at is this old story. Shawn, you probably remember this. This was in 1982. The trial, I believe, took place in 1985. This was the Twilight Zone uh, deaths that happened on the set of the 1983 film. You remember this with Vic Monroe?
Yeah, I just read about that a while back. It led to the death of Vic Morrow and two Asian children who wound up dying in a horrific fashion.
Right. Tragically, and John Landis, who was the director of Animal House, American Werewolf in London, and of course, Eddie Murphy's movies like Trading Places and Coming to America, he was charged with manslaughter along with several other people, including the producer of the film, the production assistant, and the person setting the explosions off. You remember this? So there was actually a trial, and E True Hollywood Story actually, and we can show a video of it, just talking about this. But I think this is what happened. I'm trying to see if it's just trying to make sure it doesn't contain footage of the actual. Okay, hold on. I don't want to see this. But essentially, what happened in that film was that Vic Morrow and two children, Vietnamese children, were on the set of, were basically on the set late at night around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the kids were not supposed to be operating, first off, that late anyway. It was against California regulations. And John Landis, apparently, he, along with the producer Joe Fosler Jr. and others, they acted outside of this. And sadly, during the course of the stunt, during the course of the part they were filming, he was playing a Vietnamese villager, because Vic Monroe's character was a racist in the film. And tragically, what happened is the helicopter malfunctioned after one of the got out of, well, I shouldn't say malfunction, got out of control
Results could happen.
when the explosives were going off, as you can see. Now, I don't think this is actual footage from it, but I don't want to actually see the footage of the kids or anybody getting killed. I'm trying to make sure it's not there. I don't think it's this, because this is the broadcast.
Something went terribly wrong. An assistant cameraman on board the helicopter recounts how they were blasted out of the sky.
The third blast blew our tail prop off, and it was all over. We just started spinning, went around in circles about 1.5 times or something, and crashed into the riverbed. And on our way down is when we hit the actors.
Oh,
As the helicopter crashed, Vic Morrow and the two child actors were killed. At the time, the accident disturbed many in Hollywood, particularly because labor laws governing the employment of child actors appeared.
I didn't know they were going to play that scene. But John Landis, that's the director there. He was on trial along with 3 others. Now, he was acquitted. I should say that much. But his career in Hollywood was never really the same again. Uh, you know, after this happened, he did make a couple of movies like Coming to America. He had, of course, he did Michael Jackson's Thriller and Black or White Video, but his career was never really the same. In fact,
You couldn't trust him.
No, Steven Spielberg actually broke off his friendship with him.
Yeah, because he went too far. He violated ethics to get those shots.
He violated ethics. He violated ethics, and someone was killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All because he was too ambitious for a shot.
Of course. I'm sorry, Shawn. Go ahead.
You gotta respect the union rules, and you also have to respect safety rules. And
law.
in this business, in order to gain trust, you got to be able to follow the rules. And John Landis, sadly, he was too ambitious, and he just led to the deaths of people on a production. That's why nobody wanted to deal with him after that.
This also happened, if you remember what happened with Brandon Lee. This situation out with Russ. This was when Brandon was killed by a prop gun. So when this story with Alec Baldwin came up, a lot of people started to speak, including Brandon Lee's fiance, Eliza Hutton, who broke her silence on the shooting. She stated, 28 years ago, I was shattered by the shock and grief of losing the love of my life, Brandon Lee, so senselessly. My heart aches again now for Elena Hutchins' husband and son, and for all those in the wake of this, all those left in the wake of this avoidable tragedy. I urge those in positions to make change to consider alternatives to real guns on sets. The official account of Brandon Lee, run by his sister Shannon Lee, wrote, our hearts go out to the family of Elena Hutchins and to Joel Sousa and all involved in the incident on Rust. No one should ever be killed by a gun on a film set. Which is true. Now, I don't believe anybody was charged with regards to, and I'm about to wrap this up. Nobody was ever charged with Brandon Lee's death with regards to that because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when Brandon died, and that was even big news for us because he was on fire around that time. If you know, Brandon Lee was making, he was doing a lot of action movies. There was a resurgence in karate films, in martial arts in the 90s because we had the video games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. Shawn, you know about this. And the movies, the Chuck Norris movies that were out, there was a renewed interest in Jean-Claude Van Damme. There was a renewed interest in all of that. And that was in part, largely of Bruce Lee, Brandon's father. And, a lot of people still to this day admire Bruce Lee. Now, in both cases, they say the guns fired were projectiles unbeknownst to the actors and crew. In both cases, the guns were not properly checked before their use. Most alarming, live ammunition was not supposed to be on either set under the industry and labor contract rules. Nevertheless, and killing someone. So what they say here, the one difference then and now is that Baldwin is a bigger, much more controversial star than the actor who fired the weapon that killed Lee, Michael Massey, who's 41. He's actually from Louisiana, by the way. He was 41 at the time, and he passed away back in 2016. In fact, you may know who he is. You already may know his face from a film called Tales from the Hood. He played the lead cop that killed Martin Morehouse with the other Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his career, really, he was never the same after that, from all intents and purposes. He, to this day, was devastated by what happened. So he was never charged, and I think The incident happened when Brandon was killed. That was in North Carolina. And I believe they probably just didn't, they thought it was just a tragic accident and left it like that. Now, under the law in North Carolina, they said it was a bizarre accident. North Carolina law requires criminal negligence to be willful and wanton, and Bobby said at the time he could find no evidence of that during the investigation. Who are you charged? The guy who made the blanks? The guy who allowed live ammo to be on the set? Who do you charge? Bobby told USA Today. There was a lot of negligence on the part of a lot of people, and that's why we decided there was no basis for a criminal charge. So that was a difference. That's why I tell you, be mindful and be aware of the laws of your state. They do matter. So hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Also, let's go ahead and talk about our next topic, Shawn. So it's going to be interesting. And like I say, Alec Baldwin is innocent until proven guilty. I think he might have a good chance of walking. There's a possibility of that. Now, the armorer, that might be a different story. But we'll see. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, Shawn, I wanted to know about, well, let's talk about this leaked SCOTUS report. Now, earlier today, the Supreme Court's investigators just announced that as of now, they have no idea who leaked the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade. You recall back in the summer of 2022, it was reported that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned by the Dobbs versus Jackson decision that was written by the Chief Justice Samuel Alito. And the Supreme Court had announced at that time that they were going to do an internal investigation to find out and figure out who actually leaked this draft of that decision, because Supreme Court decisions are done in secret. They are not shared to outsiders until an official ruling is made known to the public. Now, the announcement today is that they have failed to find who leaked the abortion ruling. According to an investigation, the investigators, they said that they failed to identify the culprit Thursday. The inconclusive end to the probe was another embarrassment for the Supreme Court. Now look how CNBC puts this. It was another embarrassment for the Supreme Court, which called the leak one of the worst betrayals of trust in its history and a grave assault on the judicial process. Investigators interviewed nearly 100 court employees in the probe, 82 of whom have electronic or hard copies of the draft majority opinion by conservative justice Samuel Alito. But neither Alito nor the court's other 8 justices were eyed in the investigation, according to an official report. Politico on May 2nd reported that it had obtained a leaked copy of an opinion indicating that the Supreme Court was poised to overturn its 5-decade-old ruling, a case known as Roe v. Wade, which found there was a constitutional right to abort. That draft first circulated on the Bush report on February 10th. On the heels of the leak, Chief Justice John Roberts directed Gail Curley, the marshal of the Supreme Court, to investigate the disclosure. In June, the Supreme Court, in a majority opinion penned by Alito, said there was no federal right to abortion, just as the leak had indicated. The opinion came in a case known as Dobbs versus Jackson, Women's Health Organization, which challenged Mississippi's restrictive abortion law. The Supreme Court, as released Curley's report on Thursday, said, in following up on all available leads, the Marshals team performed additional forensic analysis and conducted multiple follow-up interviews of certain employees. But the team has to date been unable to identify a person responsible by a preponderance of the evidence. This 20-page report suggests that the leaker almost certainly was a member of the court staff. She noted that the investigation had determined that it is highly unlikely that the court's information technology system items were improperly accessed by a person outside the court. So they say here, the investigators examined the court's computer devices, networks, printers, and available call and text logs. But investigators have found no forensic evidence in the disclosed draft of the opinion. You know that team of law, her team of attorneys and federal investigators conducted 126 formal interviews of 97 employees, all of whom denied disclosing their opinion. Shawn, one thing I noticed about this investigation, they said they didn't investigate the Supreme Court justices. Everybody else was except the justices, but who's to say that one of the justices didn't leak this? I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I think that they were being extremely disingenuous with this investigation because when you have an investigation and you have a finite number of suspects, there's something really wrong when you can't find a culprit for leaking a legal document because these legal documents usually are secured and in many cases they are top or in a place where nobody can really get to them except staff at the Supreme Court. And usually that staff it knows each other. Moreover, they usually have to sign for said documents. So somebody has to know where these documents are because they have a paper trail. And with them saying that they don't know who did this leak, this just shows me that people are just covering up for somebody because somebody is accountable for this, but the Supreme Court wants to give this person a pass, possibly because this person either is somebody who's heavily connected or is possibly a Supreme Court justice themselves. This is what somebody alleged on Twitter, that it was possibly one of the justices that did leak this information. And that would be egregious and possibly lead to that person being removed from the Supreme Court. Because when you look at this whole situation, if they've revealed that it was possibly a justice or a clerk, it would be an explosive scandal, especially if it was found out that this person was of a certain political party. And if that was found to be the case, it would be a major violation of ethics that could possibly break the country in half. So I'm thinking that somebody is covering up because they know that how devastating the effects are, and they know that the evidence of what's going on is something they don't want to get out here. So I really think that, again, that they can't find anybody as complete. BS, it's just people trying to cover up and trying to hide information. And they're trying to hide this information because if it came out that the Blue Party was the one behind the leak, this would shatter people's trust in the Blue Party and Joker Joe and really make it would be almost like a Watergate type situation.
Yeah, most definitely. And under penalty of contempt as well as perjury, this would certainly, I think, fall
in the majority
in some way
support of
would
the
hurt
rule
them
in Roe.
if it
Targets for assassination
had something to do
because
with
they gave people a
it.
rational.
With respect to that on the platform. And oh, you got noise there. It certainly would.
That removed from the Constitution the right to an abortion. The court also overturned the related 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, in its ruling. We still don't know who leaked the draft opinion. At the time, Chief Justice John Roberts ordered an investigation to identify the leaker, and so far, none of the findings have been publicly released.
I find it hard to believe that they don't know who did that with all the technology they had. It had to have been someone internal. And if it were a justice, then that would even be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Because, you have a sitting judge, a justice of the Supreme Court, not a judge, a justice that is participating in sabotaging him. And that person, unless they're charged with a crime, they're going to be sitting on the Supreme Court for a long time.
Yeah.
And they have to know from this because they email things unless they delete. Yes, they could delete it, but still, even if they delete it, the person who sent it out, you can trace when it was sent because all they got to do is look at their government email and access that. Who was the sender? Who forwarded this? What was said here? And if
Yeah,
something
it's easier to pick up a paper trail on people.
was missing and they correspond and look at it and compare and contrast it, they could probably find who the likely culprit is. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was. I don't want to throw out accusations without evidence, but it wouldn't surprise me if, let's just say, those that are very far left that are on the Supreme Court did that. I don't know it for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me. It ended up being true. Then again, they could have saboteurs in the Republican on the conservative as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, could have been on that side too. So yeah, Vulcan said somebody covering for somebody. Shawn.
Yeah, there is definitely somebody covering for somebody. And if they find out who's covering for somebody, everybody's going to wind up getting jammed up.
Yeah. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button. We are live here on this channel. And we're going to move on to our next topic. I got a couple more stuff I want to talk about. The U.S. debt hit its peak this week, Shawn. It was announced some time ago, last week actually, that the Treasury Department would begin taking extraordinary measures in order to avoid default. Janet Yellen warned in a letter on Friday to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy that the Treasury Department would need to begin to take certain extraordinary measures to avoid a potentially catastrophic default. Extraordinary measures allow the government to buy time so Congress can negotiate and pass a debt limit increase. In the letter, Yellen said the measures enable the government to meet its obligations for only a limited amount of time. She said while the Treasury Department can't identify exactly what the measures will be exhausted, she said it is unlikely that they will be exhausted before early June. I have a video here. This is coming from NBC News, where they announced that the U.S. on this week, now that letter was sent last week, now this week, we have hit the debt limit. So, as you read this article here, and we're going to play the video, as U.S. hits debt limit, Treasury resorts to extraordinary measures to pay bills.
They're traitors. Do you know who they are?
I think you're a traitor. I think you're a traitor. I trust it.
Exciting, isn't it?
We start with the debt limit. The federal government has a $31.4 trillion borrowing limit that will reach that today. It's the job of Congress to raise that ceiling in order to continue paying America's bills. But with no legislation in sight, the Treasury Department will begin resorting to extraordinary measures to keep the nation from a catastrophic default. And there's any possibility of a deal? Well,
probably not this day, though. Let's bring in congressional reporter for the Hill, Michael Schnell, here on set with us. Good to see you, Michael. And NBC News senior political reporter Sahil Kapoor live on Capitol Hill. Sahil, I'll start with you. So Treasury Secretary Yellen has expressed today, Thursday, as a day of some urgency when the country meets its debt limit. Are you seeing any of that urgency on Capitol Hill?
Not at this moment, Willie. Today is the day that the U.S. hits its statutory debt limit. That's according to a recent letter by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. It's not time to panic just yet because Treasury can use what it calls extraordinary measures to continue paying the bills. That's the equivalent of looking for cash in the drawers and the couches. And Treasury tends to be pretty good at knowing where that cash is stashed. They believe it'll last until at least early June. Then Congress is going to have to act to prevent an economic calamity. And on Capitol Hill, it is difficult to see how that happens at this moment. Republicans have taken control of the House. They feel empowered, and they're making a host of demands in terms of budgetary concessions as a price for raising the debt limit. It's something we've seen in the past. And for the moment, President Biden is making to Republicans the same offer that Michael Corleone made to Senator Pat Gary in The Godfather, which is nothing. He does not believe this should be negotiable. He says there should be no strings attached in order to get this done. Now, Speaker McCarthy, who is leading the push for some concessions on this, has said, quote, a debt limit increase with no strings attached, he says, is, quote, totally off the table. He argues that the federal government's spending should be curtailed to save programs like retirement programs from bankruptcy. He says, quote, let's sit down and find a place that we can protect Medicare and Social Security for future generations. Let's put our house in order. Now, Democrats have seized on this to attack Republicans as plotting to cut Medicare and Social Security benefits. They say that should be completely outside the bounds of this conversation in any way. The next step is likely to, for Speaker McCarthy to see what, if anything, can get 218 votes in the House. What can he pass with his narrow majority? And then put pressure on Senate Democrats and the White House. It's not clear what that is. There's a host of conservative lawmakers who have made demands, but there's no specific policy proposal, much less one that can get the votes. One other problem for Kevin McCarthy, we saw just in the last 24 hours this back and forth unfold. Congressman Andy Biggs said in a tweet, let's put this on the screen, quote, we cannot raise the debt ceiling. Democrats have carelessly spent our taxpayer money and devalued our currency. They've made their bed, so they must lie in it, unquote. The White House came back at that and said, Congressman Biggs is dead wrong to actively support the ruin of millions of American households, 401k plans, and small businesses, all in the name of scorched earth partisanship. That's according to White House spokesman Andrew Bates. You can see the battle lines developing here. It's hard to know how this gets resolved, but one way or another, Congress is going to have to act, or the U.S. could, for the first time in its history, default on its debt.
And of course, Republicans like Congressman Biggs now finding their debt and deficit hawkishness again after 4 years under Donald Trump exploding the debt. NBC's Sahil Kapoor from
Donald Trump is not the president. The United States has been in debt. Now, you see the little backhanded comment they made, and I'm not defending Trump, but NBC always has to play, just like Fox News, has to play to their target audience, which is left-leaning viewers, and Fox News, of course, appeals to right-wing viewers. And so they want to talk about spending and so forth. But here's the thing about Trump. Trump actually was centered on the United States. He was not dealing, the United States right now is trillions of dollars in debt to foreign countries like China. As of today, I have here, this is the debt that the United States is in. This is the debt calculation. The national debt clock, you can go there to usdebtclock.org. It's real time. This is how much the United States is in debt. We are in debt, according to this clock, $31 trillion, over $31 trillion. You see this?
Yep.
You see?
We had one of those in Times Square.
Yes. This is the national debt. Each citizen owes debt per citizen is $94,221. Per taxpayer, it's $246,867. The interest rate alone, unfunded debt interest, is $14,150 per person, per adult. They don't count the kids. The student loan debt, $1.7 trillion. $39,613 per student. Credit card debt is out of hand. Y'all see this? So this is what we're dealing with. And it's been going on for centuries. I'm sorry, not centuries, for decades. I'm sorry, I'm saying that. I'm off. I'm more educated than the centuries. A century is 100 years. A decade is 10, excuse me. But ever since the United States has been off something called the gold standard, which was, it was because of Richard Nixon. Nixon took us off of that. It was called the Nixon Shock. And it was a series of economic measures undertaken by the United States President, Richard Nixon, in '71 in response to increasing inflation, the most significant of which were wage and price freezes, surcharges on imports, and a unilateral cancellation of the direct international convertibility of the United States dollar to gold. The reason why the United States dollar is worth nothing anymore is in part because of Richard Nixon. And the only reason why it's worth anything is because the People's Republic of China holds an interest in it. In fact, Richard Nixon, I believe, was the first president to visit China. I could be wrong.
He was.
He was. No, I'm right. Okay. Yeah, he was. And George Bush was, I think, the last U.S. president to actually visit China. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, Nixon was the first. So Nixon broke with gold. So we're not back with gold. But this is the gold standard. It's a monetary system in which the standard economic unit of account is based on a fixed quantity of gold. So the gold standard was the basis for the international monetary system from the 1870s to early 1920s, and from the late 1920s to 1932, as well as from 1944 until 1971, when the United States unilaterally terminated convertibility of US dollar to gold, effectively ending the Bretton Woods system. Now, of course, there are some states who still have gold reserves, but that was, of course, in the United States. This is what ruined us. And of course, we got inflation now. And like I stated before, we are indebted to the People's Republic of China. That's why everything is not made in the United States. Everything is going to China. You're making from your video games, your computers, everything is made in Asia. And when Donald Trump was president, he actually was trying to put tariffs on imports from China. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
A tariff is a tax. He even spoke about that. And I agreed with him on it. But as it comes to our Congress, it is not surprising that Congress, of course, puts the needs of themselves before the American people, as they have always done. There's a reason why Congress's approval rating is at an all-time low. And doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat, they have all failed. They have all screwed up. They care not about the have-nots, but the have-more. It's not about the have and have-nots. It's about the have more. I want more. And yet they get reelected time and time again. Some of these people. Shawn, what are your thoughts about this? The United States debt hitting its peak this week.
Well, that's just another day in the pathetic states of America. Because the reason why we're in this whole debt ceiling mess is because Americans keep doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. The rest of the world calls that insanity, but in America, we call this business as usual. Now, Americans knew that they were going to have to choose a Congress, and instead of going out here and choosing a Congress that could set a direction, they went out here and made a complete mess. And again, that's all because Americans got in their feelings about abortion and so-called democracy, but weren't thinking critically about who they would be choosing to represent them. And the big problem is that most Americans don't understand the first three words of their Constitution, we the people, because it is we the people who keep making the same bad choices over and over again. Now, I was there in the 90s when the Republican Revolution came, and your Bill Clinton had the same problem with debt ceilings, and this led to a government shutdown and basically led to the country falling into gridlock. And people knew that this was a possibility, but still went to vote for whatever they wanted based on their feelings, never thinking about long-term consequences. And the big problem isn't that the Congress is bad. The Congress is a reflection of the people, and the people here in America, they take their freedom for granted. They take their rights for granted, and they don't really understand what it means to put on a government, because what they do is they, again, take their freedom in this country for granted. This is what I've been seeing with most Americans out here. And while they want to sit here and say, oh, it's Donald Trump's fault, no, it's not Donald Trump's fault that you're having a debt ceiling, because you've had a debt ceiling under Bill Clinton. You had a debt ceiling under George W. Bush. You had it under Barack Obama. And it only becomes a problem because Americans don't want to acknowledge that they are dysfunctional. And the reason why the United States is in a mess is because Americans are pathetic. They take their country for granted. And because they take their country for granted, this is why they are falling into this mess. Because if we, the people, really appreciated our country, we wouldn't be allowing our country to keep falling into these debt messes. No, we would be on point looking to deal with them. Now, you're Donald Trump, even though I don't like the guy, did want to go out here and deal with this. And he wanted to work towards solving certain problems. I mean, I may not like the guy personally, but as related to business, he was on point on several things. And people don't want to acknowledge that he was on point on certain things. And one of the things he was on point with was the debt ceiling and focusing on the long term. But most Americans, again, they just get caught up in their feelings. They're so caught up in wanting to spite somebody. And that's what I believe happened with Donald Trump. People wanted to spite him, and they wound up cutting off their nose to spite their face. But this is just another day in the pathetic states of America with Joe Biden in charge, and people get what they deserve because this is what they voted for. And if the country falls into a rut, it's basically because the American people keep voting for the exact same people and expecting a different result.
And that is the definition of insanity. Yeah. So the debt ceiling matters, ladies and gentlemen. Who you vote for does matter. And you can't keep reelecting the same people. I don't care what they dress like, what they look like. It gets to be a problem when you keep getting when you get negative results that aren't working, and you keep voting for people time and time again, and they're not doing shit. That's the issue. So let me ask you, Shawn, is there hope of some sorts for the United States? How can we fight something like this?
Well, the only way you're going to change this is if the American people start taking their country seriously. And that's the sad part. In the pathetic states of America, there's no hope of anything changing because most Americans, they take their freedom in this country for granted. They take their constitutional rights for granted. And there's no real hope of changing anything because most Americans, they just go to the polling place and they vote on feelings instead of voting on an agenda. And even worse, they don't even think to even pick their own candidates. They take these hand-picked corporate shills. And as they were with these hand-picked corporate shills, they sit there and wonder, well, why aren't you getting any results? Well, you're not getting any results because you're not putting anything in, because America is a country where you're supposed to put something in to get something out. But many Americans don't want to put in any active interest in taking active interest in their government. So they get what they deserve because you get what you put in. And if you don't put in any effort as related to picking your own candidates to make sure your agenda is supported, then you get what you deserve. And that's what Americans are getting, a dysfunctional government that reflects the dysfunction of the American people.
Hit that live, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. I heard it from Shawn. Take an interest in your country, in your government. You can support Shawn at his Cash App there. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Support me, my platform, ladies and gentlemen. Hit that notification bell. Yes, YouTube unsubscribes you. You'll get notifications when we go live. Always hit the like button. Always share this broadcast. Share and share alike, especially if you like this program. But donate to the Cash App, the Google Pay, and PayPal for me. As you know, the channel's not monetized. Now, Shawn, I have a little bit of humor that I wanted to get into tonight. I talked about this on my channel, but I wanted to know what your take was on this thing that's been going on now. There's Martin Luther King statue that's in Boston. Now, I'm sure you've probably seen it already. People have commented on it, but a lot of people are confused. Some people angry, and there are some people who actually like it. Particular Dr. King's family that have come to support it. I'm going to play this video from CBS Miami and also one from ABC News.
Meant to spark conversation is instead stirring a lot of controversy. Take a look at this statue right here. The 20-foot tall, 40-foot wide statue called the Embrace was unveiled Friday in Boston. It was installed in honor of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife, Coretta Scott King, but the art piece has sparked criticism and mockery online. One member of the King family reacted this way.
And art is powerful. And the pen is mightier than the sword. I get all of that. But that did not bring people together. It was an atrocity.
Yeah, the family not happy there. The statue is located in Boston Common, where King gave a speech on April 23rd, 1965, to a crowd of 22,000. It is inspired by a photograph of King and Scott King that captured them hugging after he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964.
Of course, what they're talking about is there's a picture of Dr. King after he won a Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm gonna see if I can pull up that picture. But have you seen that, Shawn?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Senator Scott, I talked about him on Sunday when he talked about it. When you look at the picture of the statue, what it's based on, it would have done better if they were going to do a picture about this so-called embrace if they had the actual heads of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King on the statues. It probably just made a life-size statue. But what instead they got, to me, in my opinion, just looking at it from here, was a tribute to the 69 position, because this looks like an ass-eating contest. Just looking at this shit, I'm disgusted by it as well. They got, this looks like a tribute. Now, from this angle, it looks like a tribute to hand jobs. You look at that mutual masturbation in this one picture alone. This is when it comes together. Yes, embrace dicks. They embrace a penis. Even the New York Post wrote, woke $10 million penis statue insults black community. Coretta Scott King's cousin, who you saw there, stated.
Yeah.
Now, just look at the people who, the group behind this. I talked about them before, and I'm gonna put an article. It's a private. The artworks funding was $10 million, and the city of Boston said on its online website, the organization is called Embrace Boston. Now, I'm gonna let you talk about it, Shawn, but $10 million for a 25-cent peep show. This was not worth the money. Now, I stated, well, before you speak, I'm sorry. I do want to play Dr. King's children. And Coretta Scott King's children have defended the artist and the art. They've this is the artist here. I'm going to play first off one clip. Let me play one clip, and let me play the clip of the artist who is responding. His name is Hank Willis Thomas.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's called Embrace, and I think the artist did a great job. I'm satisfied. Yeah, it didn't have my mom and dad's images, but it represents something that brings people together. And in this time of day and age,
Yes,
when there's so much division, we need symbols that talk about bringing us together. Number one, it talks about the love story. It also represents mom and dad. Many monuments are done just around dad, but it represents the kind of relationship they had working together, and they were a partnership.
And art is powerful. And the pen is mightier than the sword. I get all of that. But that did not bring people together. It was just, it was an atrocity.
7, 6, 5.
Didn't Sean Connery on Jeopardy on SNL said that? The penis might get. Ugh.
Okay, so a monument meant to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Something that brings people together.
All right, now it's conceptual artist behind the statue, Hank Willis Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hank, how are you?
Welcome to the
I can tell you, I saw the small version and the concept beforehand at the dinner, and I thought it was fantastic. There are lots of people who think it's fantastic, and you don't really care that this.
I mean, I care because, I mean, how could you not think about Dr. King and Mrs. King's legacy and not care, you know? But also, when you put art in the world, you can't control what people see. You know, I think about the Rorschach test, the ink blot test, you know, what you see says a lot about what you see about the world. And so the work is meant to be gone into. It's a call to action. You go in and be in the heart of their embrace. So what people see online, I can't really control.
I love this because it makes
You could have controlled the sculpture, brother. What you were drawing. What were you watching when you made that shit? I'm gonna make a big arm that looks like a penis, and I'm gonna have two hands underneath it. One male, one female. Oh, that's good for the alphabet crowd. I'm thinking about them. Of course, CNN gonna say they love it. They got in the middle with fucking Don Lemon. But Sean, go ahead. Tell us what you think.
I think that the city of Boston needs to go get a refund because they just basically threw away $10 million. And they threw away $10 million on a piece of junk called art, because if you're going to make a statue about Martin Luther King, you would make one that shows me his face and his head, because that would be a statue that would let me know about the importance of the emotions of a piece, because the most important piece of a sculpture is the face and the emotions conveyed in that face. So as somebody who has studied art, I understand that great art shows us the face, but what we have here is some sort of abstract piece that basically is borderline pornography, because it's looking more like a hand holding a penis in some shape or form, but it's also something that many white supremacists would accept, because what this is it dehumanizes Dr. King by segmenting him. And segmenting is something that many white supremacists do. They do to separate the person and dehumanize them. They'll say, oh, it's a piece about Dr. King, but it's a piece that's, again, passively about Dr. King, but aggressively is taking a shot at Dr. King, and also a way for this artist to so-called slip in his sexual deviancy, because that's basically what he's trying to do in the undertones of the piece, which is absolute garbage. And again, when I look at the city of Boston, you spent $10 million on this. Come on, man. You could have gone out here and spent $10 million helping out homeless vets and many of those people who are struggling in that city, rather than wasting it on a vanity garbage project that's an empty symbolic gesture that does nothing for foundational Black Americans. No, there were a lot of great digital sculptors you could have got to go do this piece, and they could have done a great piece, and it would have been one that would have really respected Dr. King and his legacy, instead of making a mockery of it with this garbage statue, which is borderline pornography as I see it, because It's looking more like a hand holding some genitals and not a piece that shows us the emotions of that time.
Look, this is even. Hold on, I'm gonna show you all this angle. This is even worse. An aerial view of it. Look at this. This is an ass-eating contest now.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. It's a bad idea.
I want to show you what an actual tribute to Dr. King looks like. Okay, this and Bernice King had a video of it on Dr. King Day. This is an actual memorial to Dr. King in Washington, D.C. The Alpha Phi Alphas actually sponsored this because that was Dr. King's fraternity. But that's a true memorial to Dr. King. That's good. Am I right?
Yeah.
This is how you do it.
Shows his face. It shows who he is. It's a tribute to the man.
Okay, and yes, art imitates life, but art shouldn't look like two booties about to be eaten.
No.
It shouldn't, I should not have, when I'm trying to look at a sculpture or art and I get artistic expression, it shouldn't be something that I have to second guess. Kids are going to look at that. Oh, Lord. The kids are going to look at this bullshit. This is nothing but a damn sculpture for the damn alphabet agenda that don't have a damn clue about how to do some damn man-up training. These sissified little punk. He looked like a sissified punk up there with Don Lemonade, who's sitting up on CNN talking about they love this. Oh, hell, woman. You don't know what damn art is. Art was me making, I had someone making my home in Memphis shotgun shells. Elvis Presley out of spent shotgun shells, damn it. That's what art is. Not this sissified, bona fide, ass-eating contest that they got a statue of my damn alpha brother, Martin Luther King, and his beautiful wife, who was a AKA. My mama was an AKA. This is a damn disgrace. Now go buy my barbecue sauce, punks. Somebody asked me to do Judge Joe Brown complaining about the art piece. That was Robert. I just complained about it. Judge Joe Brown doesn't like that sissified shit. That's something he would say, Shawn.
I would say so.
This sissified little punk. He got no judiciary functioning either. Look at him. Just look at this shit. And this blonde bimbo praising this crap.
Makes you think more deeply.
This
is, I love this because it makes you think more deeply. And I love so much focus is on Dr. King and not on her, right? And it's a couple and the importance of that support and power. But also you say there are so many monuments of the Kings that we don't see them as real people. That was your goal here.
Yeah, I wanted to capture, embody the feeling of love in their relationship. You know, there's a quote that really inspired this piece, and
it was some other feelings he had inspired in this as well. This is I respect all artists. I respect freedom, but I think this could have been much better. And brother, whatever you did with the $10 million. Please keep it. Before they ask for it back, I hope you deposited the check. Where the hell all the money went? $10 million for that? Shit, I could have done my nephews could have done a better job. They could have made this shit out of Play-Doh or something, man. They could. Shit, I could have drawn stick figures of Dr. King and Coretta. It would have been better. Oh, I'm going to show you another monument. Let me just show you this. This has happened in the movie. I showed y'all this before. This is actually in Boston, the Shaw Memorial, Robert Gould Shaw Memorial. This is the relief sculpture that they had dedicated to Colonel Shaw because he led the 54th Regiment. Remember this? This was in glory.
Yeah.
This is a restored plaster cast.
Very nice.
That's how you do a tribute. Instead, you got this. And he called it a strange moment we live in. Now the snow looks like, ugh. I could see from this, if he had put the heads on there, it would have been better. If he had the heads of them, it wouldn't have changed. It would have been better, don't you think?
Yeah, it would have been way better because then we would get the emotions of the piece.
All right. I'm done talking about porn, about artistic poem. But do you have any final thoughts on it, Shawn, right quick?
It just shows me that there's a lot of grant money art hustlers, and this one hustled the city of Boston for $10 million. I'm still wondering, how did he get $10 million out of Boston? Because I'd like to know, because I got some art I could go out here and sell them. Because if you're going to give $10 million away like this, then I should be trying to get a cut of that money myself.
Yeah. Shawn, what is your live stream going to be about tomorrow? Have you thought of it?
I've thought about it, and it's going to be about some black men are not ready for relationships, and I'm going to be talking about how some of these brothers out here are not ready for a relationship because I look at their behavior, and some of these guys who are complaining about black women, they're not ready to be in any relationship with any woman at this point.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby is available on Kindle. Ladies and gentlemen, please check that book out. Also purchase Shawn's book, The Woman Crisis, that's available on Amazon. And we have, of course, my son's Video Soul and Gotta Get On Up, that's on iTunes. I don't have anything more to add tonight. We had a great broadcast, I thought. It has to be Boston. Phantom Beat said that military monument was grand. Yeah. Do you know they vandalized that during George Floyd protest? This is the problem with some idiots. You got people who don't know history. That was Union soldiers that fought, black soldiers that fought for you to be free. Although it could have been white people that did that. I think it was.
I think it was white supremacists.
Someone said, check out the statue of soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo. But let me look at it right quick before we leave. So hold on. I don't follow soccer, but this is the statue he's talking about.
I'd have to take a look at it.
Oh, I'm going to look at it right now. Oh. His crotch is buffed out. They grabbing his ball sack.
Wow. Some of these sculptors take it too far.
I've never watched this. I don't watch, he's a soccer player, right?
Yeah. I don't really watch the soccer.
Is he deceased?
I think he's still alive.
Okay. They got a statue of him. Yeah, he's still alive from Saudi. He plays for the Saudi Professional League. He's from Portugal. He's very popular with the ladies, huh?
Yep.
All right. Well, all you sissified punk, Judge Joe Brown, lady. Yeah. Y'all should check out what's under my. I can't wait for my statue in front of the Memphis City Hall with me and you ladies to see my gavel. Yeah. Tomorrow's video that Shawn's going to do on the Hollywood Historical Men in Crisis is our game. Actor Matthew Stommy Beard and comedian Lenny Bruce. Okay. You have that, Shawn?
Yeah, it's coming up at noon tomorrow Eastern. So you guys can check out that episode of Historical Men in Crisis. And I hope to have future episodes coming up soon.
Yeah. Shawn, would you do me a favor after I end the live stream? Would you mind staying on? I had a legal thing I want to talk to you about.
All right.
All right. All right, you sissified punks. We thank y'all for tuning in. This has been a great live stream. Again, please donate to the Cash App. The Patreon is right here. The link is there. You can advertise, damn it. Advertise so you have some judiciary functioning on this channel. And you also can get my Creole seasoning, NaughtyCreoleBlends.com. Try it on chicken, meat, or fish. Naughty's goes great with every dish. Now we've gotten on down, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to get on up. Oh, Shawn, one last thing. Do you think anything will come? Because we talked about the leak, but I do want to ask you this. What's happened with the classified documents with Joe Biden, President Biden? Do you think there's going to be anything that's going to come from that?
I doubt it because white supremacy doesn't punish itself. I mean, I doubt anything is going to be except a bunch of drama. I mean, it's no different than Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. So I just think it's just going to be a big waste of time because that's what we're going to get, gridlock for the next 2 years and a lot of back and forth that turns into nothing.
Yeah. Interesting enough, that sculpture of Dr. King in Washington, D.C. was done by Li Yixing, who was a Chinese sculptor. He was a Chinese sculptor who did that.
Yeah, I learned about that back in 2008 or 9.
Not a black man.
Nope.
Although I wish a black person should have done it. But I'll give him his credit where it's due. He did a phenomenal job. But I think having a black person doing that would have been great. You also had a group of individuals that were involved in it. All right. Well, we've gotten on down, ladies and gentlemen. It's now time to get on up. So let's feel the groove, get on the floor. Don't go and see that damn statue in Boston. All right, good night, everybody. It's time to get on up. Yeah.
All right, I'll be right back.
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat. Because on the dance floor is where we'll live. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up.
Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on Earth, Wind and Fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop, I'll do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really grooving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up.
Hold on, I gotta stop this though for a second. I'm coming right back, but DeAndre was showing me this picture. This was the actual head of the statue of Cristiano Ronaldo he was talking about. And that's even worse. Ugh. That's like Scary Lucy.
You're like a crackhead.
You a crackhead, man. A crackhead did this. This is Judge Mathis. I can tell a crackhead did this. They slanted the eyes, the face is distorted. It looks like Sloth from the Goonies. Well, hey you guys. Okay, I gotta get back to get on up. I just had to point that out. Thank you, DeAndre. So they replaced it and put his statue, a full body statue up, so ladies can grab his nuts. Okay.
Girl. If you're ready, I need you all to get on up with bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you're breathing, you're achieving. So if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll be.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up
and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up,
baby. Yeah, gotta get on up. Come on, baby, gotta get on up, baby.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up.